anikasavo kasavang, yo vatang paridahisati, apeto dhammasachena, naso kasavam arahati. So the first thing we should look at in this verse is what has been put in green. And what is in green, these are all nominative case, and they all refer to the same individual, the same person. If we wanted to find perhaps the main clause, and I'm not saying this would be the best strategy when translating, but when understanding the grammatical relationships of the clauses involved, if we look at the main clause, naso kasavam arahati, this will furnish us with the understanding of what all of these nominative case nouns are pointing to. So, this one or he. And let's go ahead and finish this clause here. He kasavam arahati. Now, actually, kasavam arahati would be kasa. Let's see here. If it weren't run right together with this verb, which starts with a vowel, it would look like this. Kasavang arahati. But since it is run together, we end up with this. Arahati means to be worthy of, to deserve, maybe to merit. This one does not merit. And then the object here, kasavang, and it's spoken of a little more fully before, kasavang, and really you have to look that up under kasaya. This actually means like a kind of brown. I think that's what it means literally. And this is really interesting in Pali. What color is a kind of brown to them? Yellow. Keep that in mind. We're going to come back and explain this a little more fully in a minute. But this one is not worthy of, does not deserve the yellow, and really talking about garments like the yellow robe, is not worthy of being a monk, in other words. So let's go back here. We will look at anikasavo, not free from impurity, impure, stained. Again, we're finding out why this person is not worthy. Yo, the one who, and now let's look at this relative clause here, paridahisati. This is the future of paridahati, to put on, to clothe. So someone who is, or maybe we could say, being impure, or while impure, the one who will put on kasavang vatang, the yellow clothing, the yellow garments, the monk's robes is what this is referring to. The one who would do that, and also here, this person is described one more time, apeto, means freed of, rid of, deprived of, or maybe just without, or maybe lacking. So this person, lacking, and this is a really interesting, this is where compounds, understanding the compound really makes a difference. So this one I really puzzled over, and I just consulted a translation, and then I realized my error. If we look at Dhammasachena, Dhammasachena is a compound of two words. Dhamma, meaning self-control, self-command, or moderation, and sacha, truth. And when we look at compounds, we have to figure out, is this a tapurisa, is this davanda, so on and so forth. A tapurisa would mean that this last part, this sachena, stands in some relation to Dhamma. Or let's put it like this, Dhamma is in a case that's not being expressed, and it would be maybe different from Sachena. And that is how I was at first trying to translate this, lacking the truth of self-control, something like that. So I was trying to see if this could be Dhammasa, in other words. If this were not a compound, does it make sense for it to be Dhammasa Sachena? And it doesn't. It doesn't. Like, how would you understand that? So what is actually going on here is that this is actually a davanda, meaning that these two words are actually, they have to be understood as being in the same case. If they were broken apart, we would end up with dhammena cha sachena cha, putting in the cha for the and. So this is someone who is lacking self-control and truth. And so you see the difference there. It's lacking two things. It's one compound word sort of masking the fact that there are two words that should both be in the same case. Now, if we put this all together, we might start the translation with the person who would put on the yellow robe, being impure, lacking self-control and truth, maybe, the idea of truth or the concept of being truthful. That one is not worthy of the yellow robe. One last point here, arahati, the past participle of arahati is arahant. And I think we are probably all familiar with that word, especially as it comes up in the chant, Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. And one last note has to do with the overall meaning, which I generally like to leave to you, dear listener. But here I think it's just worth mentioning that a literal reading of this verse may not really be of much interest to the vast majority of those of us who read this. I would wager that most of us reading this verse are not monks, and we may not ever become monks. But it certainly can have meaning for us if we think about this a little more metaphorically. We can ask just how worthy we ourselves are of the teaching if we remain impure and lacking in self-control and truth.